Can Australia keep intact this wonderful record, never having lost to South Africa, despite them being ranked at number 5 in the world at the moment and as high as number 2 after the 95 World Championships. McMahon puts the first shot through, and they'll intend to make it business as usual.
Yeah, it's a bit daunting, I think, stepping out on court against the world champions, the reigning world champions. So I guess some early nerves expected and some consolidation ahead given the loss of their captain, Bronwyn Bok.
Jordan swings it across and over the top of Marley van der Walt.
And I think that pass evidence as we see the umpires for the match. Bobby Reid on screen, and she's assisted by Bronwyn Spear both from New Zealand. I think that first pass was evident of the kind of adrenaline that you build up wanting to take on the world champs.
Richardson swings it back into McMahon. Victorian, but not club teammates. And Sherelle McMahon, a fantastic international shooting average of over 80%. Mind you, Cindy Gumedi at the other end also with an awesome record, particularly at the Commonwealth Games, Annie.
Yeah, Cindy came back from the Commonwealth Games as the leading goal scorer. She put up about 197, closely matched by Elaine Davis from Jamaica. And her accuracy, fantastic at 84%. More impressive was her match against Australia, 27 from 29. So she's not daunted by the big reputation from the green and gold.
That's off Kath Harvey-Williams, so South Africa with the throw-in.
Yes.
Jonker looking for Gumedi, and with front position, it's almost impossible to defend. And South Africa on the board.
Interesting then, Liz Ellis elected just to mark Gumedi, even though it was a 2-on-1 situation. She didn't play in space. She knew that Gumedi is the target shooter for South Africa. Expect that pattern.
So the high ball is the option at 192 centimetres, Gumedi. Ellis at 183. But Liz Ellis well used to marking tall defenders. And Irene van Dijk for South Africa and now New Zealand has stood on Ellis any number of occasions and rarely got the better of her.
Absolutely. I was just thinking she's moved them on to New Zealand colours when you consider Irene. But Gumedi, I think, settled in South African colours. As Australia had another brilliant start from McMahon.
Richardson gives the signal for the centre pass and a 3-1 start for the hosts. Oh, McMahon with that trademark fantastic leap.
Well, that pass was centimetre perfect, and McMahon knew exactly where to pull it down. Unfortunately, there was a foot underneath her as she landed.
Desmarie Kotze there, who is the most capped player on court, although Marta Mashoga will be playing number 59 if she gets on. But Kotze, this is game number 54 for her, and Ellis at the front. But Bronwyn Spear saw a transgression from the Australian defender. And Elsa Jordan, the captain, standing in for Bronwyn Bok, who's done an ACL. That's just too sad for words as we see how that happened. But Bronwyn Bok, a great player, and it's just a great shame that she's out of this series.
Well, it is, because the impact of the injury is that she will not be able to play World Championships for South Africa, given the gravity of that knee injury. Tanya Pelcher, on the other hand, it is a major muscle tear, and they hope to get her back on court. But both players will be missed as Australia add another. Just looking at the caps, Steve, if you take out the withdrawals, the last-minute withdrawals, Australia has 378 international caps coming into this match. South Africa 227. So, you know, a serious difference there in experience.
Cox. And the Sydney Swifts players, Catherine Cox there with a black armband, also Liz Ellis and Alison Broadbent. A sad passing of Lynn Cummins, the sister of the former Swifts physio, Erin. And so Liz Ellis particularly close to Lynn, so our best wishes go to the Cummins family. And Australia putting together a run of 3 goals to establish a handy lead early.
There's only been 1 turnover in the Australian line so far in the match, which is impressive given it's the first outing. You know, they've been doing the hard work, but this is an international, and very few errors, great accuracy all the way down the court. You only had to watch their warm-up, which our viewers, of course, didn't have the benefit of doing, to see just how fit they looked and how good the hands and skills were.
So Gumedi, 2 from 3. Jordan successful with her only attempt so far. A couple of Australians on the bench waiting for their first senior international. Cinna Neal and Natasha Chocolate They must be nervous sitting there, and I would bet that if Australia's sitting comfortably at half-time, that they'll be likely to get a run.
I was watching their faces when the national anthems were played, and they just looked absolutely delighted to be out on court, open court for that anthem. There's something pretty special.
South Africa forced to retreat under this great Australian defence. Nearly a held ball. Ellis comes out.
Well, Australia's setting up an offline defence. The two circle defenders playing off their players and just within the circle, and Richardson and Schultz working to defend the top of the circle. So South Africa, not used to penetrating that type of defence, made hard work of it.
Jordan makes sure of that one. So the lead is 6. And not yet halfway through the first quarter. And Australia and South Africa played a couple of matches in the 60s at World Championships, and then nothing through the 70s and 80s. And 74-38, Australia beat South Africa in their pool match in Manchester. And South Africa ended up 5th, defeating Wales in that playoff for 5th and 6th. And they did that rather easily. They won by 50. Jordan, VM, and Jonker.
Australia really applying the pressure on the edge of the circle because they know they've got to force a feeding error. Liz Ellis unlikely to get to a well-placed ball to Gumedi. Australia must force a poor delivery in.
Oh, beautiful goal from Elsa Jordan, who's 3 from 3. Richardson and Cox. The Australians, well, neither of these goalers wants to get dragged. 93% team shooting. And Cox has now missed one. She's 5 from 6. Meyer. Back to Meyer. This great defence has got them a little rattled, but finding a way to the circle now, and that's a well-placed ball. Gumedi picks up the scraps. Then for Jordan. Harvey Williams wins out. It's just looking a little laboured around that South African circle as they try and deal with the Australian defence, Annie.
Well, there's great contrast at the moment. The ease with which Australia in full flight moves the ball down to their shooting circle compared to, as you mentioned, the laboured attack from South Africa trying to get through the defence. Australia really putting out a wonderful first quarter of netball.
Vantage break, go on attack.
14-6, under 6 minutes to go. First quarter, Cox. Oh, how did she get that through there? That was very brave.
Well, you're the third person to ask that question. It was Coxer and Meyer who asked ahead of you.
Jill McIntosh, well, was that quite the right option? I suppose if you get away with it. But I don't think the two defenders thought for one moment that that would be tried.
Well, coaches always like the shooters to shoot the thing. And shooters always like to thread it that one pass too many. It was a beautiful ball.
Cox now. Over Kotze, out it comes. And first to it was Julian Meyer.
A lot of parallel play from South Africa as they try to find some space, and that sloppy work through the mid-court. Meyer really not having the happiest of opening quarters. Has a hands full with Sherelle McMahon, and who wouldn't?
Richardson on to Sanders. And Cox gets rid of Kotze. And she's on 6 from 8. Lead of 10 in the first quarter, so the kind of powerful opening that Jill McIntosh would have been looking for.
Australia, when you're here. Contact, penalty pass or shot.
Contact against Meyer. McMahon with the shot. She's 10 from 10. Make it 11 from 11. And a smile from Jill McIntosh. On her right, from Roberts, manager.
Great work from Peter Schultz. Good pressure from 3 feet over the ball.
Jonker. South Africa really need a couple more goals before quarter time just to lift their confidence, get a few more attempts in from Gumedi.
They're really not making good use of Gumedi. Whilst Liz Ellis did well to get to that, it was again a poorly placed ball that fell short, wasn't put into the space behind Gumedi.
Jordan is on song.
To their centre, Van der Vault, and she's the one that put the ball to Gumedi, but really not a lot of space being left open for Gumedi in that forward line.
So plenty of reward for the Australian effort in this first quarter as they take it out to 18-7. Van der Vault and Jonker in the corner.
It's been difficult for South Africa because Gumedi has been set up early on many plays, but Jordan has run behind her, which has blocked the move. So they really need to watch where each other are.
I think Gumedi's enjoying a couple of push-offs against Liz Ellis, who's perhaps coming off second best in the hip-to-hip encounters.
Are we keeping a statistic on that?
No, but I'm just pointing out that, you know, shooters like yourself, Annie, aren't as pristinely innocent as they like to.
Do not lump us all into the same barrel, thank you.
No, you've got one of your own. Ellis,
oh, no.
happy to pick that one up. Richardson on to Schultz.
That's embarrassing to put that down as an intercept. That was a pass to Ellis.
McMahon still yet to miss.
You see that slip through South African hands, and Liz Ellis happy to oblige to pick up the crumbs. Cheryl McMahon on 12 straight. Poor ball, inside position held by Harvey Williams.
Yeah, one hand was enough to feed it on to Liz Ellis. And McMahon and Cox. A sure right hand goes up, takes it nonchalantly, fires it, and well into the 20s they'll be by quarter time. So that's an impressive start from the Australians, not looking to give the South Africans any quarter. Loose ball. Liz Ellis shepherds it out of court and gives it almost straight to Jordan, although that's also spilt out.
Yes.
So Elsie Jordan, the captain in Bromland Box, injured absence, extremely proud to assume that captaincy, and one would expect she'll carry it right through to Jamaica. What a thrill for her. Julian Meyer, test number 14 for the goal defence today. Plenty of height in that defensive circle for South Africa. Meyer at 181 and Kotzer at 188 centimetres.
Yeah, they don't lack for height, it's the manoeuvrability. They're not used to the speed of the Australian game, and several times Meyer's been caught either flat-footed or face defending Cheryl McMahon, and she'll get no joy from either position.
McMahon's first miss. Van der Vault.
Trying to talk over that so we didn't see the
think
blemish.
I wouldn't notice. Well, you know, it's all very well to say they're shooting 100, but when they miss, you know,
You're a hard man. Again, poor disposal. And I think also, in fairness, not good positioning from Gumedi.
Harvey Williams. Turnovers 12 against South Africa, 3 Australia.
Come up.
Keep those as low as possible. That's what Jill McIntosh was looking for. Reduce your errors.
Contact, goal shooter, penalty pass.
And inside the last 30 seconds. The sign being held up on the Australian bench there. 15 seconds, down to 10. They just got a little routine going here so the players know what's left. If they've got a chance to get it into their attacking circle quickly and get that last goal.
Whilst it may not seem as crucial in this match, it's great preparation for those where it will be.
And not much to criticise about that first quarter effort from Australia. Jill McIntosh will be quite content, I think. Trailing by 14, South Africa start the second quarter in possession. And straight away a penalty conceded by Aussie skipper Kath Harvey-Williams. VM on to Moswale. So the couple of Marthas joined the game for South Africa. Martha Mashoga at goal shooter, Martha Moswale at wing attack, and Martha Mashoga, better known to her teammates and around South African netball by her nickname Manzo, and it's as much as anything to differentiate her from the other Martha, who's often in the squad. Between them they've played 80 caps now, 80 matches. I don't think you can play a cap, can you?
Australian shooting stats, they're averaging 85%. Cox with 10 from 12 and Cheryl McMahon 13 from 15. So they're on song in this first test. the beauty of having Martha Mashoga come on for South Africa means they explore a different kind of forward line, one that adds mobility. She'll have speed and mobility, whereas we had a static line in Gumedi. I really don't think they got great advantage from her, or as much as they could.
Masuali sees one pass through the fingertips, and anxious first moments of the match. McMahon, for her at least, as she joins the game after the first break. But we've seen both Marthas in action before, Annie, and they're got plenty of experience and ability. We'll just see if they can settle into this match quickly. Meyer, William, Jordan, and Ellis came looking.
Well, that was very telegraphed, that move to the corner.
Did you call a replay or a step there? A step, I think.
I think it...
Binders on the ball.
Cox.
Binders obstruction.
And that's a loose one from Australia. Touched out of court by Scholes.
Yes.
Out of the hands of the skipper, Elsha Jordan, who's a sports scientist working on a PhD, Annie, that I'm sure you could relate to. She's looking at protocols for netballers. She's a busy studier and teacher and involved with netball in all sorts of ways.
Yes, I can relate to that. Many hours put into that kind of work. And the binding of the thesis.
Natasha Chocolate getting a few words of coaching wisdom there from Jill McIntosh. Goes back to side assistant coach Lisa Behard. Richardson drops. She was reluctant to pick it up. Could have been called a replay. VM.
And you would think perhaps that little chat, perhaps indicative that they may get a touch of this game later on. Just pointing out a few things that are happening, because the babies of the Australian lineup are sitting together there on the bench.
It's just got a little sloppy at the start of this second quarter. The Australians have scored the last 7. End of the last quarter. There is Chocolate on the left, Sinanil in the middle, Jane Olschwager, who's only played 2 tests. So 2 tests between the 3 of them. They all belong to Olschwager. But it is an era of change. It's important to note that, as we check this replay first, Annie.
Yeah, through the hands, and Kath Harvey, of course, watertight in picking up a turnover.
Australia 8 goals in a row now, putting together the start of this second quarter and the end of the first. But players like Sanders, Harvey, Williams and Richardson, we expect all to be gone after this year's World Championships at international level. So these 3 players are looking for their chance to step up.
Contact wing.
And that aside, the Australian players through this series will be playing for a spot in the World Championship lineup.
That was a replay from McMahon.
You know,
Cox.
Everybody wants to get on the statistic for intercepts.
Lovely goal from McMahon, whose stats have just slipped that little bit, 15 from 19.
And again, that pass telegraphed. I mean, it was great work from Kath Cox, but it was telegraphed in the length of time that they looked to the player.
Well, McMahon shot her first 11 or 12 without missing, and she's 2 from 4 in this second quarter. Well, that was trying to thread something that couldn't be done. Cox.
That's a fine shot. And it really just showed how comfortable she is out on international court.
She's very hard to defend when she's in this kind of form. She takes the shot quickly. She's tall to start with. McMahon. Equally tough. And Australia has shot 12 in a row to shoot out to a lead 30-8.
Well, that was one of the better players from South Africa, very direct to the circle, just wasn't capitalised on with the shot.
I don't know about that one. Richardson shoots her a smile.
Oh, well, the face.
I'd have been happy to let that one play on. I'm not quite sure what the call was there from Bronwyn Spear. But smiles for the Australians. Yes, Nick Richardson's cousin, of course, is the great Richmond footballer Matthew Richardson, who said something rather unsavoury to an AFL umpire the other day about, what do you think we're playing? Netball. Well, did that get the little text messages flying between the cousins? And I think Matthew's gone a bit quiet.
Instruction. Penalty pass. Yes.
We'll have to get him along to a few more Australian games, I think.
I think he could play the odd celebrity match and we'd sort him out there.
I think so.
He can warm up to one of the internationals. We'll see how he lasts. Oh, nice switch in play from Australia. They've really worked the angles nicely, and the speed of the ball is just something you've got to admire.
So South Africa have still not added to their quarter-time total. They're just stuck.
And prepared then, you could see, to play 4 short balls rather than penetrate through the centre third.
The marking is tight from Australia. Harvey Williams runs onto one, contact against Jordan, and the handbrake is on as far as the South African scoring is concerned.
They've had terrible trouble in the second period since they've removed Gumedi of even getting the ball into the circle.
And it's a little easier for the Australians. McMahon onto Cox. And Alison Broadbent waiting her turn. So the Australians with a full squad of 12, but not so South Africa, who have to work with 10. And they'll be hoping that Mosawale is okay. Action resumes, and an opportunity taken by South African coach Louise du Plessis to put Gumedi back on. I think she might have been listening to Anne Sargent.
Well, she took the opportunity to replace, obviously, the injured player, which you must when you call time, but also Gumedi, which makes you wonder whether there was some intent in the timeout, because the 2 players that came on at the end of the first quarter have gone to the bench.
So Jonker is back on at wing attack. And Liam is at centre.
And Van der Walt has moved to wing defence.
Yes,
I actually think they pulled the reins on Gumedi too early. There's obviously merit in playing her. It's in the way that you use her, and it's really about opening the circle up to a one-on-one situation for her and then placing the ball.
And the Australian midcourt is getting a lot of good touches to force more turnovers. 20-7 the turnovers are running against South Africa.
Maya sat right back on that play. Now Beck Sanders drove literally onto Maya's shoelaces, and Maya sat there rather than coming out onto the ball. That's an area where they can really read the play a little better.
Gumedi takes one, and
Spinning out of court.
looking for just their second goal of the quarter.
And immediately she's had impact, fresh from her rest on the bench, but they're finding her far better.
Sanders. Cox. And 23 from 26 to Catherine Cox. Australia on another great run, 6 in a row. Fiam back to Maya. Jonker looking for Jordan, and gee, that gave Kath Harvey-Williams every chance there, and was never going to reach the captain cleanly. Opposing skippers are opposing each other. Goal defence and goal attack. Richardson, Sanders, through McMahon, Richardson. Cox just shooting with all the confidence in the world. There was a time there where she struggled to establish herself in the Australian team, but looking more and more comfortable at this level. And 54 attempts to 17 just tells you the overwhelming supply of ball the Australians have had, and nothing to worry about for Louise du Plessis as half-time approaches.
Well, it's not the accuracy that would bother her. They've shot at 83% on the opportunities they've had. It's, as you say, the starvation of possession.
Cheryl McMahon just thought she might have got that back in court quick enough, but I think at 40, they'll have more than doubled their quarter-time score. Well, what a moment for both Sin O'Neill on screen and Natasha Chocolate as they join the match in the second half and take part in their first senior international for Australia. And Annie, you and I have often argued that to get into the Australian netball team and the starting 7 is one of the hardest things to do in Australian sport. There's only 7 positions on offer, and you look at the number of people who play the sport. So what a dream for Sin O'Neill and Chocolate to come on Olschwager as well.
And both of them with smiles bigger than, and you have to say, and I was just thinking as you were saying it, Jill McIntosh, since she's taken over as coach, has really utilised the bench. She puts them out, they are exposed and tested, and sometimes difficult to predict which lineup will go out, but certainly they are given their opportunities.
And she gets her first goal for Australia at this level. She's been an under-21 player, of course, and not to miss the fact that also Illich and Broadbent have come on in defence. So 5 changes made by McIntosh, obviously feeling at 46-15 that the game is very much under control. And a nice way to introduce Chocolate and Neil with the game well in hand. Second half, a little less pressure. And we'll hope that more go in than don't for Sina Neil, and that the passes find their mark for Chocolate, who is still playing a relatively new position for her at wing attack. We're used to seeing her at wing defence for Phoenix, of course. And a big cheerio to Tasmanian viewers, with Natasha Chocolate hailing originally from Tasmania. We're struggling to think of anyone else who's played for Australia out of Tasmania in the netball national side. And I'm sure that her mum's here, as Natasha's family's in Queensland these days. Neil.
It's good timing on the rebound from Neil. The shot looked as if it was going in, and she really went up on it well.
Liam. Yonka. And Schultz having a bit of a go from almost doing a little two-step with New Zealand umpire, Bronwyn Spear.
Australia playing a 2-on-1 on Gumedi, so paying close attention to her. They're letting Jordan run a little freer.
And offside Schultz. So Peter Schultz, a real workhorse at wing defence. She and Richardson get to stay on. The two players who probably do as much running as anybody. They don't get a break, but maybe they'll swing someone around in the last quarter.
There's not too much deception in the South African forward line on the feed, and the ball doesn't swing quick enough. If they moved it around with a little more speed, space would open up for Gumedi, but they're not used to doing that. It's more one-off, and it's a little slower than Australia play the ball.
So it's 2-2 at the start of this third quarter as the Australians look to settle in this very different combination from that they played with in the first half. And a loose one from Schultz, but a step, unfortunately, against the South Africans. And Julian Meyer would like to take that one back. Neil places one round the corner for Olschwager. Oh, how did that miss? That's Olschwager, pretty handy at 192 centimetres. Does tend to take a few rebounds.
Olschwager the same height as Cindy Gumedi, her counter position at the other end of the court. So some tall timber on court. Olschwager, of course, with great mobility. She's really developed that area of the game in the last season or so.
Neil works her way closer. And that one just a little too much on it. Out she comes. And it's still rather static and lofted for South Africa. Yeah, that's close to a held ball. I'm surprised there haven't been a couple more called. They're certainly testing the 3 seconds.
Oh, it's a mess in the middle. That's as politely as I can put it. South Africa really trying to work through that mid-court where Australia putting a lot of defensive pressure out.
And that's off South Africa. Australia's ball, and I don't think Elsie Jourdan quite agreed with the call, but quickly gets on with it. Which I think is something that netballers can be proud of in the current sporting environment. There's not too much histrionics goes on in the wake of what we've seen recently from certain other sports. I think that's netball's administrators and players can take a bow there.
I think, too, the coaches show great discipline on the sideline, and if we're going to make the comparison to other codes, but I guess we shouldn't make the pedestal too high because there's a long way to fall, isn't it? We'll just let the players do the business.
What a ball for Gumedi. That really was on the money.
And I don't think she was used to it. I mean, that shows you something, doesn't it? She really had to get up to that one, and that's what they should be asking her to do and demanding of her on every ball. Olschwager a little anxious when it left the hand, but there was no need to be.
And she's on 2 from 3. Neil 3 from 6, so she's had a few more opportunities.
Again, Australia sagging back. Broadbent and Illich playing offline in the circle. It's a split circle, and the work is being done up the front. You can see Schultz and Richardson covering the front.
No hope for Broadbent there. That was a good ball for Gumedi, who was far enough off the baseline to give herself some space to drop into.
And I think the screen was offered too by Jordan, who was holding Illich out of play.
51-19, and not yet halfway through the third quarter.
Not taken in the centre third, I think, is the call.
Contact against Broadbent.
Well, this should demand a quick play the ball and quick hands into the circle. You've got one of the Australian defenders out. It's a 2-on-1 for Illich. So they've got the numbers, but the slower they take the ball doesn't do their cause any good.
Gumedi had moved away from where the ball was sent. It was a good opportunity with Broadbent high out of the circle. Chocolate. Neil. Olschwager. Neil.
Contact, goal defence, penalty pass.
Contact against Meyer.
Not taken, free pass.
So that was over a third before it was off the sideline.
Cox and McMahon left the game on 89 and 81% respectively, and just that certainly puts a little bit of pressure on Olschwager and Neil. Quite in that percentage range at the moment.
They're averaging about 58, 59%, but it's unfair to draw too much attention to it in that they've just started their campaign. That will lift the longer they're out there. Contrast in speed between these two teams is probably the most obvious factor. It's speed of the move and speed of the ball.
Big thumbs up to the Queensland Netball public, by the way. Sellout here at Chandler. And they don't often get to see the Australian team in full flight.
And of course, a lot of them have come out to farewell Catherine Harvey-Williams for the last match in Brisbane.
Expecting quite a reception in Adelaide when she gets there for her one and only time as captain.
The boxes of tissues on order, it's okay.
Oh, you big
The trucks are driving them in as we speak.
And former Australian captain Vicky Wilson and Queensland hero did the toss of the coin before the match.
Nearly by herself.
Yeah.
A bit slow to accommodate her.
Jordan, Yonka, and Gumedi. I think she's taking up a few better positions in this third quarter round.
Yeah, I still think the positioning lead needs a stack of work, as does the delivery.
Neil threads away between two defenders, finds herself with a long shot. A little raise of the eyebrows. She was as pleased and maybe surprised as anyone that it went through. I think she liked the look of the range, but we like the look of the shot. And Neil's on 5 from 9. Jordan, it's through hands of William and Schultz. Richardson, look how fast the Australians are travelling down court, as a contrast to how the South Africans are managing the same project. Olschwager.
South Africa very slow on the second phase play, and Australia just punishes them with their fast break style of play.
Neil spots Olschwager. It's well delivered and well taken. Olschwager played a fair bit of Aussie rules in her youth, learning how to... Oh, the toe was just over the line. Neil looked at her foot, looked at the umpire. The umpire must have thought Neil had given herself up for guilty there.
Australia coming very high down court to set up against the South African attack.
5 left in the third quarter. And Broadbent had a good look.
Had a good go.
Oh, a great take from Illich. I think she enjoyed that too, as they all would in Kuirup. The Lynch family. I'm proud of this one.
Illich up well, and Inspector Gadget juggles it nicely. That, of course, was just after Alison Broadbent had had a serious go at the intercept. So Australia really prepared not just to do the hard groundwork, but to come out onto the ball, and that's lacking in the South African defence.
Senna Neal from Kyabram and Janine Illich from Kuirup. We've got Country Victoria pretty well covered. And again, you know, Australia's provincial towns produce so many of our good athletes.
Great pressure in the reach of Ali Broadbent over the long arms of Gumedi.
This from KwaZulu-Natal. Plays for the Mermaids Club in their National League, which has been going for a couple of years now. It's a great improvement for South African netball, that not only do they have a National League, but it's also on television. And cheerio to our friends at SABC who are showing these matches.
I know they've been envious of Australia and New Zealand and the media that both countries enjoy, so it's great to see that developing in South Africa. Such an untapped base of talent there.
Where she is. Yes.
Jordan. And just out of the range of Gumedi. Maybe she could have moved more quickly. Maybe the pass could have been better, but they've still got possession. This time, strong take.
To be the most subtle of dishes off them, just out of the fingertips to Gumedi. It's eventually there, and that's the point. They're making a better fist of it in this third quarter.
57-21. So it's just 11-6 this third quarter. The Australian rate of scoring just slowed with these 5 changes they made at the long break. Oh, Schultz. Oh, how did she get it to Chocolate? And she just drifted offside. Did Schultz, or was she out? Offside. They've got some skills, these players. They almost execute that kind of move too quickly for an umpire's eye to see. But there's no doubt from Bobby Reid on the far side that that was the call. Not that the extra lines on the court make it any easier. I think it's marked for about 18 sports, this court. Meyer. The players seem to know where they are. Brisbane. Oh, 2-on-1, and yet Gumedi's still at it.
Oh, 2 Australian defenders and a goalpost against them.
Well done, Cindy Gumedi. And she's only 23, and you can expect to see her around top level for a long while.
You see here the close attention paid by the Australian defenders, and then Gumedi flies into the post as well.
A bit of help from Alison Broadbent, I think. Alison backed her into the post.
A little bit of assistance.
Oh, it was accidental.
South Africa have maintained a fair consistency in their scoring rate, but the main point of this quarter is how they've restricted Australia. Now, whilst it's good to see the younger players out on court, and we noted 2 making their debut, the scoring rate has dropped dramatically, and that's Australia's 12th of the quarter.
So they scored 22 and 24 in the first 2 quarters. So
that won't please Jill McIntosh.
No, but it gives her something to work on, doesn't it? And I don't think she's always looking for the perfect game.
What, you've got a problem with things being too easy? You'd like a challenge?
I think she does. Broadbent cleans up. Neal ventures out of the circle and finds Olschwager. Did she? Yes. Meyer out of play for the Olschwager shot now. As Australia closes in on 60 goals. Not that time. Yeah, that was all Cotz's ball. Jonker. And not enough players in motion, maybe. Van der Walt.
Well, that was interesting. She hadn't made any attempt to actually defend the ball then. She was really just dancing off the ball, considering her options. So that was, I think, was a premature call.
Gumedi makes sure of it.
Oh.
And she's 17 from 19, putting out a great performance in goals. Cindy Gumedi. Obviously the go-to option for South Africa, with support coming from Jordan. Chocolate. Richardson gets around one, but a step call against Chocolate.
It was well held by Chocolate, though, because to have given that ball early would have been a certain intercept to Meyer, so she was reading the game well, just ran out of feet.
Broadbent takes a starry intercept on the stroke of... Underway, final quarter, first test at Chandler in Brisbane. And the Australians looking to finish well. That's not quite what Jill McIntosh would have had in mind. And the lead is a healthy one. The Australians will play South Africa in their pool matches at the World Championships in Jamaica. So they'll be well used to each other by then, although they're not met between the Commonwealth Games in Manchester and this match. And wing attack now for South Africa is Tabaseng Moabi, playing her third international. Yonka in at goal attack.
South Africa.
So Jordan is off.
Yep.
The skipper. Interesting move. And I think Yonka wondering why she was ignored on the baseline.
Yeah, but you know, that was a smart option because it does draw the defender to that baseline move and it opens space for Gumede, and that's the type of move that South Africa need to employ more. Something that diverts attention, then you plug it in at the last minute.
Chocolate. Richardson. Neil has got a good solid bump from behind from the defender Meyer. But I think Christina Neil knows how to hold her ground. Yonka.
Sina has great composure for such a young player. She's a very balanced player, very pretty to watch, but just outstanding composure.
Yeah, good temperament. Richardson. Chocolate.
Not that there's a nasty one in the mob, but for someone so young, Chocolate too, lovely composure.
South Africa.
And was keen to make amends after the missed feed, so she's held up the South African progress.
Back a little bit, back a little bit.
Australia's highest score ever against South Africa won't be challenged tonight, I don't think. 89 goals. That was 4 years ago.
Beautiful quick hands then from Jonker onto Gumede. That's what's been lacking so far. So are we seeing a touch of a combination of the future? Because there's been some nice plays since this one came on.
Van der Walt. Moabi.
Maybe not that play. Misunderstanding between the two shooters there. Well, has the desired outcome, if not the right pathway.
Yonka's batting 1,000. She's 1 from 1. William, the centre pass, a little fortunate to get about as Schultz challenged. Yonka available again. That's not quite there. Illich, the rebound. Richardson.
Poor positioning from Gumede on that rebound. Someone of her height should be able to really get up on every missed shot.
South Africa leading at the early stage of this fourth quarter, 3-2. That one's off the hands of Chocolate to Neil. So good hands up from the Aussies. They're just, again, scrappy at the start of this quarter. Contact against Chocolate.
The use of the elbow in pushing off is indicated by Browan Spear.
Beam. Ouch. Van der Walt gives the back a bit of a twist and a test.
No. Yes. Obstruction. Penalty pass.
Obstruction against Schultz, so she's out. There's the koala mascot sitting on the esky over there. I think Sina Neil gets to carry that around, being the baby of the team, only slightly younger than Jane Olschwager. And Louise du Plessis, steep learning curve for all concerned. I think she'll concede that. Oh, down goes Meyer, and through it goes from Olschwager. She gets up.
See Meyer there trip, and she hits the floor heavily.
It was just her own ankle, I think, that didn't do as it was supposed to. I mean, she wasn't tripped.
No, she's pretty tough customer. No fuss, she just got up. Nobody called time. The call has to come from the player on court. Australia have scored the last 6 on the trot. Olschwager going for 7. Oh, the contact call against Sina Neil. Ports that.
Inside the last 6 minutes, BM. So the option exercised by Jill McIntosh is to give these 5 players who, there we are, held ball, who joined the game after half-time, at least a half. So Richardson and Schultz stay out there for the full game.
That play was choreographed then by Nicole Richardson, who circled a finger telling Olschwager to use Neil as the screen. The high ball is coming, and they did what they were told beautifully.
Broadbent jumps on the loose ball. Richardson. Olschwager to Neil. Just weaved away in front of Meyer.
I think Chocolate's doing some of the basic work well. What's lacking is the creativity as a wing attack to set up a feed that the shooters may not be aware can happen. You'd need to be another pair of eyes for them in that circle. That was great deception. It didn't come off because the ball wasn't placed well, but the deception was nice.
Yeah, Richardson was available in this right pocket, but so was Elschwager. Courtesy of the deception, just wasn't quite delivered to her. Well, that one to Yonka from Meyer.
It's a shame. VM's good work at holding the ball on court, undone by Meyer.
The turnovers interesting. Almost 2 for 1 against the South Africans. It's the pressure of the Australian defence at work. Elschwager and Neil have looked more and more comfortable the longer they've been out there.
Contact, goal attack,
And the contact goes against Neil. It's one of those 50-50 calls, and I think either player
Side and away, please.
was confident about who it was going to go to. So, 4 minutes to go. Step call against VM.
No, I didn't see it. I thought she had a grounded foot. I thought she decided to make a right foot a grounded foot. I didn't see it move.
Moabi, Yonka.
Oh, that was nice play from South Africa. Good deception from the centre pass. Moabi moving nicely on the inside cut.
Some of the spectators here have gone to a lot of trouble to support their team. Cases painted, balloons blown and pushed into interesting shapes. And Elschwager, what's she sitting on, Annie?
74%, so she's really pushed up. They were 57% not that long ago, and she's now 14 from 19, and Sinanil 11 from 16 is just under 70%. Good take.
Yeah, and a good disguise on that offload as well. Beniti. 22 from 27, 81%. They're the exact same stats that McMahon accumulated in half a game.
Distraction, wing attack, handy pass.
And the attempts tell a story too. Australia with 89 to 39. Hung there for an age. William. Mr. Meyer. Straight to Broadbent. Just found herself in the right space at the right time.
Contact on the ball, centre, penalty pass.
So Kev Harvey-Williams can start to undo that strapping. She knows she won't be needed in the last couple of minutes, or can't expect to be needed. Certainly will hope there's no injury to a defender. Certainly the South Africans hope that. They're only drawing on a squad of 10 today. 2 more players on their way, available for the second test. Illich. Whoops. A misfeed.
Far side.
See, I'd say that intercept from Illich was no more a replay than what we saw at the other end. And it wasn't called.
Yeah.
Well, no less a replay. Moabi.
Just taking a look, Steve, at Chocolate's turnovers. She came on at half-time, and there's 9 turnovers against her. So she's been the most costly on court for Australia. And I guess that comes back as we have a look at the intercept from Illich, who took the tap and then followed through with clean hands. That's simply coming down to a familiarity with the position and judging the shooter's moves. So we've got to give her a little bit of leeway.
Moabi.
Contact, wing attack, penalty pass, South Africa.
So, last minute of the first test, and it's Australia by 42. They're up by 35 at three-quarter time, so they will win every quarter. That's a minimum, I'm sure, that Jill McIntosh sent them out with. Gumedi took up a good position, well delivered to her, and from her height and those long arms, 192 plus whatever the arms give it, it's almost just drops it in. Neil. Oh, what a shot. And Neil up into the 70s now with her percentage after being under 50% early. Illich, great touch.
Beautiful work. It was clean work, outside arm around the body.
What's she calling that? A short pass? I do not understand that call.
Is that called a replay?
Well, it wasn't the same player that took the ball anyway.
Yeah, it must have been a short pass, but I don't think there was room.
Well, Louise Duplessis says 42 is the margin. She looks at the scoreboard. Jill McIntosh gets up smiling and goes over to shake the hand of her